Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm here today with Travis Klein of Human Head Records on Meserole Street in Bushwick, New York City. How you doing, Travis?
Good, how you doing?
I've known Travis a long time. I used to go to the store that was over also in Bushwick. Where was that, on Johnson Street?
Yeah, Johnson Avenue, a 5-minute walk from here.
Right.
It looks like a totally different planet, but
right.
neighborhood-wise,
right.
It is actually pretty surprisingly close.
But here in this 5,000-foot square store, there's everything. There's metal, there's electronic, there's hip-hop. There's strange Japanese pop from 1982 that we're listening to at the moment. I mean, you can get everything here. We are in the back room where Travis ships out lots of records all over the world. The store has a huge Discogs presence. And I'm going to spring a few questions on Travis. I haven't told him what they are yet, but I'm curious. Travis is one of the big mass movers of vinyl here in the city. Why do you do this? Why do you run a record store?
Lack of a better reason. I was on unemployment and my partner came up with the idea. I never would have thought of it. I've done warehouse and logistics my whole life, and it became a fit. And obviously, I've since jumping on, it's an amazing experience to do, particularly in New York City. I'm originally from southeastern Wisconsin. I don't think it would have been nearly as rewarding and intellectually interesting and inspiring if I wasn't doing it in another. If I was doing it in another place.
Yeah, New York is ground zero for so many vinyl record stores, vinyl of every style. When did the first store open? What year was that?
August 2013.
Wow. And how have you seen the business change, the whole vinyl resurgence, as it's called?
Yeah, it's funny. When we got in, we felt we were too late, and it's now been 9 years. So it still feels like year 1, 2 in many ways. Many people say we got in at the right time. We handle secondhand goods, so it's really a price point in terms of what we buy something for versus what we can sell it for. However, I think the resurgence is people that haven't had turntables have an interest. Sometimes when they come here, it might be a little bit confusing because of the way that we present stuff, but they usually find a lot of amazing records that in other places would be $35, $40 reissues as clean originals for $2 and $5, and it's fun to be able to walk people through that experience and why that is. But
yeah, and I've always gotten the impression you are about moving records. I mean, we're in the back stock area where you do all your Discogs stuff, but in general, you are about. I mean, valuable records are priced like valuable records, but they're also priced to move. And you'll find records here. You won't find any of these Brazilian records that I buy anywhere else. I've never seen them. They are really, really valuable. But you also sell a lot of valuable jazz records. But you do seem like you want to move records. That seems like your credo.
We definitely again, not being able to do this anywhere else. People do come here for the collectibles, and we try to have rare artifacts. In doing volume, from my past life, I've always been interested in a dependable dollar versus what I can actually get on a single unit. That's really important to me. We have a dealer network around the globe that we use to sell off volume at different price points and tiers, and in the result of the volume, and even in the space that we have a physical capacity. We can't sit on everything forever, so there's a lot. The majority of the cheapest bin, which is $2, is clean stock. It's just titles that are common everyday titles. Musical quality is notwithstanding. It's really just about a marketplace and what's worth our time. For us to spend $2 in labor to get $4 on a record online. We'd rather just put it in the $2 bin, give somebody a win, let them take it, do what they want with it.
That's right. I just noticed today, you not only have a $5 jazz bin, you also have $2 rock records, which is kind of amazing.
And it's not just whooped trash, it's a lot of stuff that
right.
Dealers both locally, as local as New York City, but also internationally, that come and, based on the taste and curation of their store, can offer those titles. And, especially if somebody's coming from somewhere else, you're bringing back real value, it's a lot of what allows us to get out of the store what we charge on a Brazilian records a lot of times, because there is a big value of the certainty of being able to play the record, a guarantee that when if you have an issue, you have a dependable place to bring it back to. We really work with people in trades. It develops some stability in a high value but also highly volatile market, which are these records. So it's a service. And
yeah, you have 4 or 5 listening stations.
Yep.
Yeah, and headphones, which I know the Jazz Record Center, we don't have any listening stations at all. And you also sell CDs, not just vinyl.
We do CDs on our Discogs page, and if we had enough space where we could have more listening stations, we would. We buy the headphones with insurance, so that we can return and just get a new pair. We cycle out the needles and sell off used needles and cartridges as on a volume based basis.
Really?
Yeah, just to move the stuff, but also you can grab $100-$200 record off our wall and take it to a listening station and play it.
Right.
And if you don't have good equipment where that doesn't sound good, or it's inconsistent, we've had this in the past where people will bounce around to different stations, and then they won't like a certain station,
really?
but they won't tell you.
Oh, is that right?
So there's a whole labor process where you just have to be on top of it, and the best way to do it is just to kind of define how soon we want to turn those things and take the used item and sell it off to a customer for cheap, and keep it all moving.
About how much stock, how many pieces do you have on Discogs, ballpark?
It's about 30,000 items, give or take, and that's generally based on the capacity that we currently have. It is strategic between what kind of stuff we do put on the page. Less and less in the vinyl world. Less and less do we put stuff on there that's 6 or less. We might be, it's a combination of sometimes obscurity and sometimes a condition premium where people who are looking for those kind of things are online, and then we do all the CDs online. It's just not something that we do in the shop at the moment.
How did you weather the pandemic? What year did you move here, the big store, first?
So this was November 2020. The 3 days into the pandemic, our landlord at our old place changed his tune like a lot of landlords, and we eventually had to make the jump here. And it was a little touch and go because it's a big tourist area.
Yeah,
and it was 11 days before the election, and we in 2020 we were concerned that if it went the other way, that tourists wouldn't come back. And there's certain worlds that are a dependability of sale based on marketplaces.
Wow.
We had a psych record on the wall for months, and I'm like, I know the exact person who's going to buy this. And finally, West Europe opened, and they showed up at the shop and bought the record.
Wow.
But that's just one item that you can kind of see over volume.
How do you find collections? This is a big store. How do you find the collections to fill it?
White paper. What I mean by that is it's really whatever ideas you can come up with. Whether it's getting out there and making people aware that you buy records, and also we have a pretty sizable dealer network of people out there looking for stuff for us and bring us stuff. And, you generally pay a little bit more for that, but the curation it allows us to keep the quality of the store high, and we've had the fortune of finding good people to work with. It's something that I really kind of emphasized from the beginning. Before, like, buying collections was kind of the last thing I learned how to do in this whole thing, which is, I think most guys, probably the first thing they know how to do.
Right. Yeah. Right. What in the store right now? What are your most expensive records? What are the most valuable records you have up on the wall?
Probably a few Brazilian records. There's a couple OG Blue Notes that are up there that I think are, between, $500 and $1,000. There's a Haitian boogie record that I'm really into. That's on the wall here. That's kind of in that same range. We probably have, a half a dozen records that are 500 to 1,000 on the wall at the moment. Couple things, yeah. There's always something. How
do you, like, right now, I don't know if people can hear, but you're playing a Japanese pop record from 1982. It sort of reminds me...
I don't know if this is even...
Oh, this is a different record?
I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, this sounds a little more dance-oriented. But you were playing this record. It had this strange cover. I forgot the guy's name. But you had it priced at $120. How do you know such an obscure record, the value? Do you look it up somewhere? Is it a pop psych thing?
Generally, it's a hybrid of pop psych, Discogs, eBay sales, eBay aggregate sales data, and also Discogs. And the nuance is in not only the condition, but also like reading into what the have wants are and what they mean to genuine demand. There's certain worlds, like Discogs, for example, started off as a 12-inch single cataloging site. So 200 watts on a Prelude 12-inch isn't the same as maybe 30 watts on a Salsa 45, because the market for those Salsa 45s aren't as prominent maybe on Discogs. It's not their primary platform. So there is some nuance there, and then also condition variables and those kind of things, and how ambitious you are in relative to the market, in terms of what you choose to put on stuff. The thing I see really frequently is, guys will bring in records that have it's some obscure thing, has no wants on Discogs, never sold, cheapest one available is $35, and they want to say it's a $30 record. Well, that probably isn't even a $2 record, because it hasn't sold.
And you told me, which I was surprised, that you can actually make more money for a valuable record on Discogs than eBay?
Depending on the record.
Yeah,
depending on the market. I think the contemporary markets, for sure. I think the mid-grade $30 to $50 records, for sure. 90s grunge is going to go for more, because younger people are on the Discogs app far more prevalently than people who are just there's some patience to eBay. You have to wait a week. You got to follow it. It's not just there. You can't, Discogs sends you an email want list to your email doorstep telling you all the items that you want that day that were listed. But
doesn't eBay sort of feed the gambling buying frenzy? If somebody wants a record, they see it go up, I'll bid more, I want that record.
Sure. And I think those are different examples of what could be the same record, right? You could get more for it on Discogs on an impulse, generally speaking, but maybe one time that it's up on eBay, it just spikes because two people happen to be all over it.
And I guess it depends on the record.
For us, for volume, it's what's the percentage of the amount of times that you can depend on that spike? And I would argue that it's not high enough that it's worth all the labor and BS involved.
There's a lot of labor involved.
I mean,
and eBay's rules, you want to
tough,
fucking
man.
kill them.
And they chisel you to death. They're
they really do.
They're like guppies on fish food. They just gnaw at you with
the front, the back,
the shipping tax that you have to calculate. Yeah. I mean,
they take a percentage of your shipping.
Oh yeah,
they're fucking bastards.
Oh yeah,
they
are. No reason.
For no reason. That
just
should be illegal.
Because you're not going to go anywhere else.
Yeah, that is so mean-spirited. Yeah, they're really something. Which genre have you seen rise in value through the years? Jazz, Latin, metal?
I mean, generally speaking, I would say all of them. You know, like if you bought records from our store pre-pandemic, your collection has gone up in value. You know, like we price aggressively, and 1970 isn't getting any closer. You know, like there are specific worlds that have had different spikes, and then, you know, individual records can be anything. It can be a TikTok video. It can be, you know, like it can be a TV show. It can be a documentary. It can be anything. But, you know, genres overall, you know, like, you know, I would say, you know, like spiritual jazz, and, you know, like kind of that what we like to call positive jazz fusion is all like pretty, you know, like has had some pretty significant accelerants, you know, like in the pandemic. You know, Lonnie Liston Smith Expansions was $8 in Human Head all day in 2019, 12 months of the year, and now they're $50 records.
No kidding.
Oh yeah.
What accounts for that?
Demand.
Yeah, we never see that record at the store. Expansions. Huh.
It was like it you know, like in a period of time you had this bored appetite, and it immediately funneled into two platforms to buy, being Discogs and eBay. And so because of that funneling, the availability for people to buy other copies of everyday records, your Thrillers, your Rumors, these kind of things, became less because everybody was on the same platforms. They didn't have options. So then you had these spikes that have since maybe softened a little, but they're not going back to pre-pandemic levels, you know. Yeah.
It's really crazy. I know at the Jazz Record Center, as in, did you ever see that movie High Fidelity about the record store? Yeah. You know, people, you see like the weirdos that come in, it's much worse than that. The weirdos that come in the Jazz Record Center, I don't want to call them weirdos, but such a panoply of unusual characters who are into records. Every sort of, we have a guy who wrote Fred a letter once about me, and he said, you know, Ken McAuliffe, that writer guy, he likes to keep all the windows open. All it takes is me. He said, all it takes is myself getting close to that window. Then he drew a little line, like going out the window and dropping and splattering on the pavement. So this guy was saying I was endangering his health because I kept the windows open. It was just classic. But I'm sure you have your share of record nerds, and tell me about. Give me a couple stories if you can.
I think any, like, this activity, what is it? It is a human being many times spending a lot of inordinate amount of time with an inanimate object. It cares nothing about you. It doesn't even care if it performs the one function it is to play sound. It's just a thing, right?
Yeah, right.
And predominantly male at that. And so when you have this, you know, equation coming together of sorts, you're going to have the spectrum of personalities that, you know, like maybe don't have that practice in, you know, human interaction, and, you know, also that's very apparent in online customer service. People value their time differently, and it's a big like continual target to try to stay on top of, because expectations that come with that value vary from person to person. So you know, just trying to make everybody happy, you know, with even though you're not Amazon. So people will spend like an inordinate amount of time on like a $2 CD or something, or
Online.
And you see it in the store too sometimes.
I mean, asking you questions about the CD?
Yeah, or just like having the stack and then coming to the desk and handing them one at a time. Like, just give me the pile, I'll add it for you. It's just personality things. How people need sometimes just have a different approach of walking through that process. And people this is a pleasure journey for most people. Yeah, online is far more demanding, but that's
really,
that's always been a big takeaway. I mean, you're at home, you don't have, again, that human to human interaction to develop perspective and nuance and things that are removed and broad brushed out of society in a lot of ways. And so I mean, in terms of in the store though, we get interesting characters every day. People have asked me this before, and I always have a hard time coming up with one. I feel like every day there's people that are entertaining, educational. I think there's a Coltrane quote out there somewhere where he said you can learn something from everybody. I kind of try to adhere to something like that.
That's a good attitude. I wish I should develop. It's a healthy attitude I should have.
Well, you can learn the things you don't want to or you don't like, right?
Yeah. You pulled some records there, some 45s. What do you have there? Just show me what those are.
I'm just like kind of not so subtly flexing a couple of fancy things. This is
hold them up then.
A pretty rare Brazilian compacto with a pretty screaming track on here that's very popular, very probably the most valuable record we have on our online store page at the moment.
Wow. Okay, good. What else?
This is here I'll start with this. This is a compacto of a Tim Maia. They're called compactos from Brazil because they don't have anything that plays at 45. This is one of my favorites of his album-wise, and the tracks on here are great.
It plays on 33, even though it's
every record from the country plays at 33 because they wanted to get more information on the media.
Huh. Okay. What else?
Leading into that is.
And what do these two go for? You just held up. Are those?
This maybe the Tim Maia maybe $50. The Luli Lucinia is like, I think we have for like $1,200 at the moment, something like that. This is a new discovery for me, leading from Tim Maia. This is I believe it's a Bolivian group that does kind of like a fuzzed out Tim Maia cover, Que Beleza, and it's pretty cool. It's a recent find of a record friend. Rufy at Discodelic was the friend who brought me this. Totally stoked for it, it's great. What else do I have here for you? I just grabbed some compactos from the latest Brazil trip. I was at a record show in Rio just under a month ago. First show before or since the pandemic. We do quite a bit of travel there. My family is my wife's family is from there, and we are involved in the record scene there. A couple of guys who help out with the shop are contemporary musicians there. And,
wow.
It was nice to see a lot of faces that like I haven't seen since before the pandemic. People there, you're just like, oh, I'm glad you made it out of whatever this is. I started going to the U.S. ones maybe 4 or 5 months prior, and it was a lot of the same feelings. Like you see the same guys at these shows. I enjoy seeing them. Like it's a camaraderie of people. There's a certain amount of respect and pride that I think comes with like a lot of those guys, because a lot of these guys are up early hours of the morning, looking for records, like it's a grind. They're not just staying in bed and being lazy. They're getting after it, and I respect the hustle.
Tell me about the your T-shirt.
This is a designed by my wife. It's one of our anniversary shirts. I think it's the 6th year by the 6th there. Huh. This is Penny, the old mascot of the shop, the old location on Johnson. She used to sit in the window next to the main turntable.
Greyhound, right?
Whippet. Yeah.
Whippet. Yeah, it was a great dog. She
was amazing.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was passed a year into the pandemic. But she's with us here at the shop still all the time, and there's a painting behind the front desk, and there's a large group of people who are fans of the shop, primarily because of her. She was a very sweet pup.
She sure was. Well, thanks for speaking with me, Travis. Great store. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.